Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
In the market for a condo? What's behind Vancouver's housing market slowdown?
Ultimately, at this point, it's a very weak market when we think about the ability to transact.
Also, Canada Post workers poised to strike again. Workers could hit the picket lines on Friday, its union says.
Canada Post walked away from the table again.
And yeehaw, saddling up for the Cloverdale rodeo.
This year they have someone drawing caricatures. He drew a really good one of me.
All the people and the music, I think it's just really good energy.
From the live music, games to the rides, rodeo goers take in the last day.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Baneet Braich. Thanks for joining us. As the province sees an increase in housing inventory, prices are beginning to come down slightly. And while that may be good news for some home buyers, analysts warn it could make the housing shortage worse in the long term. Janelle Hamilton reports.
Amid U.S. tariffs and economic uncertainty, experts say Metro Vancouver's housing market is slowing down and it's impacting new builds.
It has not been a great period to get new developments off the ground. And while we currently have the scenario of excess inventories, that also means that as we're not building for the future at this point, we are at risk of having a further housing shortage when it comes a year to 2 years out.
He says housing starts have declined by 30% compared to this time last year. Some housing advocates say policy reform is needed at a municipal and provincial level to ensure homes continue to be built.
Nothing has really fundamentally changed with the way we get housing built. So the economy is slow right now. Housing starts are declining. That's understandable, but that's very cyclical. And what we really need is to reform systems, permitting, zoning, development fees, so that housing can get built even at a lower price.
He says it's concerning to think BC's housing crisis could worsen. Even with prices expected to trend down, he says with the high cost of living, most housing remains unaffordable.
Now is the time for governments at both the provincial and federal level to really put their thumbs on the scale for housing affordability.
And while the slump is an opportunity for first-time homeowners to get into the market, there is another factor impacting buyer confidence: fluctuating mortgage rates.
Mortgage rates in Canada follow the bond yields, and in particular, the U.S. bond yields as well. You know, if you think to the U.S. and the on again and off again of the tariffs, that's kind of where the mortgage rates went as well.
The cost of borrowing may also change, with the Bank of Canada set to make more policy announcements on June 4th. Both Ing and Yu predict at least 3 more interest rate cuts by the end of the year. Janelle Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Canada Post says it's received strike notice from the union representing 55,000 postal workers. As Georgie Smythe shows us, the government may have ended the last strike, but the gap between the two sides that triggered it remains just as wide as it was 6 months ago.
Canada's postal service is once again on the verge of shutting down. CUP W, the union speaking for 55,000 Canada Post workers, says members are ready to walk off the job Friday morning.
We certainly didn't want to be in this place.
This strike would be the second in 6 months, an extension of a job action that started just before the busy Christmas season last year on issues like wage increases, pensions and medical leave. They were ordered back to work after 32 days. Now the extended collective agreements expire in just 3 days.
Unfortunately, Canada Post walked away from the table again last week. I think that's about the 3rd time through this process that they've walked away from the table. And they also indicated that they may change our working conditions.
Canada Post is facing a large financial shortfall, more than $800 million in 2023. Last week, a report recommended changes to save money, like phasing out daily door-to-door letter mail delivery and hiring part-time employees.
it points out that Canada Post is facing an existential crisis, that the financial situation needs to be addressed, and we need to be making a number of changes, starting with negotiating agreements that reflect the realities of 2025.
The union rejected most of the recommendations and says it wants to continue to negotiate. Both sides are at an impasse.
When you intervene, you really don't solve the underlying problems, they just continue to fester.
But acting on the report's recommendations could mean big disruptions too.
Restructuring means making Canada Post much, much smaller. This means layoffs of thousands and thousands of workers.
Both sides say they still hope to return to the bargaining table, but if no agreement is reached, operations like mail and parcel delivery would stop by the end of the week. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
There's a new name in candy in Kamloops' North Shore. The Lemon Drop opened its doors recently, attracting sugar lovers of all ages. As Jennifer Norwell reports, the business signals the area's shifting tastes.
Just a few months ago, this storefront attracted a very different kind of clientele.
It used to be a sex store. They closed and they thought, what are we going to do? And they asked the staff, and the staff said, we want candy.
And candy they got. The walls and the cabinets of the new shop are all packed with brightly colored packages and sugary sparkles. It stands in contrast to next door, where the lemonade stand sells tobacco and vape products, along with marijuana paraphernalia. But McMichael says there is some overlap.
Even though we don't sell marijuana next door, still people come over, they're snackish, they're stocking up on snacks for later.
Well, there are other candy shops in Kamloops that sell chocolates and candy. This is currently the only designated candy shop in town. And it's something many people seem excited about.
That there's these sort of derelict buildings which will become the next ones, which we're going to start to see flipped over because they're no longer viable for the landlord. All of the adult style entertainment is slowly morphing, and it's becoming more family friendly because we're finding more families in the neighborhood.
Titan says this is part of a larger shift.
As we look around the province, usually it's the urban centers that are getting most of the infill and most of the evolution, but Kamloops is sort of bucking the trend in many of our small communities.
While Heighton's watching what these changes might mean for the larger community, others are just focusing on the sweets.
Honestly, as soon as I walked in, I thought I was literally in heaven. I'll come here anytime that I really want to have a special occasion, probably.
Anytime, as long as she has permission from her mom. And it's not just kids who have been stopping by excited. People of all ages have been in and out of the store.
Like the cottage country sour mix. People like that nostalgic feel of having something different, something you won't find at the gas station or the Save-On or anywhere. You can have that candy you had when you were a kid.
Even though it's just newly opened, McMichael says they sold out of a bunch of things in the first few days, like root beer flavored cotton candy and pickle flavored puffs. A new direction for a neighborhood that's off to a sweet start. Jennifer Norwell, CBC News, Kamloops.
And thousands of attendees got a glimpse of country life at Cloverdale rodeo this past long weekend. Our Saurabh Sandhu caught up with visitors on the last day.
For his very first time, Mehboobul Rahman takes on the mechanical bull. But just as he begins to get confident, he gets a reality check.
I think next time maybe like 4 rounds, I can complete that one.
4-year-old Nathan is delighted he discovered a new treat.
Cotton candy because we didn't know where it was. So we got 2 of them.
From live music, food trucks to dozens of thrilling rides, rodeo goers say it's a fun-filled weekend for every age group.
My favorite thing is the variety of rides and just all the food options. There's lots of things to do and lots of food and entertainment.
The event got off to a soggy start with heavy downpour on Friday, but some say that's not stopping them from taking part in the rodeo fun.
I mean, no matter the conditions or what, people are still out here having a great time, so yeah, it's great.
The event also features an Indigenous village showcasing the work of Indigenous artists. The May-long weekend fixture is one of the biggest rodeo events in the province, which attracts top riders from across the country. This year marks the 77th anniversary of the rodeo. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Surrey.
And Stephanie Hungerford joins us now with a first look at the weather. Good weather for bull riding, Stephanie?
Well, not quite. You know, if they'd waited till next weekend, maybe. But, you know, we can't control the weather. So we did have this Pacific front that moved in, especially this morning. So that is going to continue until tomorrow, until about noon. And then we're going to have a mix of sun and cloud throughout the lower mainland and on the island. And then we're going to get the very nice weather on Wednesday. More so on Thursday, but we just need to keep our fingers crossed for getting through the next 24 hours or so. And then really the temperatures are going to warm up quite nicely into kind of the higher teens towards the end of the week.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. We'll check back in later. And Sunday marked the 45th anniversary of Mount St. Helens eruption. Scientists say the volcano will erupt again in our lifetime. Johanna Wagstaff breaks down what will make it different from the deadly blast in 1980 and how today's technology is giving us an early warning system.
This is the side of Mount St. Helens blowing out 45 years ago. And this is where we think the next eruption will happen, which will be in our lifetime, by the way. But it's not going to play out the way you might think. Here's what we know and why we're so confident it will happen. So first of all, the when. Mount St. Helens is an active, explosive, regularly scheduled volcano. It's erupted more than any other in the continental U.S. over the past few centuries. And volcanoes like this tend to blow about once every 30 to 100 years. Yep, we're getting into that window. But here's the thing. These eruptions don't come out of nowhere. Scientists will see it coming.
Kind of highlighted that these things don't necessarily occur out of the blue, because there had been this swarm of earthquakes around the volcano that indicated that molten magma was moving up the throat of the volcano. And the other thing that was kind of ominous was the volcano was swelling. I think, you know, at that point they issued an evacuation.
That was 1980, but Mount St. Helens is still very much alive. Just last June, there was another spike in earthquake activity. Magma started moving again. It didn't reach the surface, but scientists call this a recharging event, a sign that the system is priming itself. So yes, it will erupt again, and yes, we will get warning signs. But here's why the next eruption won't look like 1980. That one didn't blow straight up. It blew sideways. Why? Because the mountain's flank had been weakened by a large body of molten rock inside. Eventually, that slope gave way. A landslide triggered a rapid pressure drop, and the magma exploded out the side in what's called a lateral blast. That sideways eruption is what caught people off guard. Today, that slope is gone. In its place, a deep crater. And that crater acts like a pressure valve. If magma builds up again, it's more likely to vent upward or into the crater instead of pushing through a plugged, unstable slope. But don't get too comfortable. An eruption straight up doesn't necessarily mean it's safer.
Damage and death is difficult to predict, but you can use the form of the volcano to kind of give you some idea. And the earthquakes now can be located so precisely with the seismic monitoring equipment that you can kind of even track how that magma is moving up through the throat in more detail than was possible in 1980.
So 45 years later, we're not only expecting another eruption, we have better tools, better models, and a better sense of timing. But the force of nature, that's still very real.
I remember very vividly, I was assembling a group for a geological field trip, actually. It was in Vancouver. As we were assembling, this was about 8 a.m., there was this huge, what sounded to me like an explosion. There was a sound wave from the eruption as it turned out, from the volcano, and it echoed off the North Shore Mountains. It was it could have been a ship exploding in the harbor, but it was actually the eruption of Mount St. Helens as a sound wave just jetted through the city. It was totally remarkable.
It's a sport with a storied history, but a new generation of wrestlers are making sumo more inclusive. After a successful event last year, a new generation of wrestlers are bringing back another basho, a sumo tournament. Now, this amateur sumo exhibition features live matches and aims to be inclusive. Take a look.
So we're here at the historic Vancouver Japanese Language School and Hall in Vancouver, BC, and we're here at the 2025 Basho Amateur Sumo Exhibition and Tournament. A number of people competing, doing sumo wrestling today. We have a big audience here to watch them. We have taiko drumming, we have like food and other stuff. I got involved with sumo wrestling at the annual Powell Street Festival, which celebrates Japanese Canadian arts and culture. So for me, it's always been something for fun, but the more I have gotten involved, the more it's been how can we allow other people to learn how to do sumo, because it's not something that I knew going in, so I was always just flailing around in the ring at Powell Street. But in the last few years, since we started Sumo Sundays, we've been able to teach other people different sumo skills and doing it in all bodies, gender inclusive environment. We sold out for today's event, which is awesome. So I'm really excited to see the sumo that we have today, and I'm excited for the audience to see how everything unfolds, because with sumo, you never know what's going to happen.
So I took home a prize. I took home the Fighting Spirit prize. I feel honored to get the Fighting Spirit prize. Sumo is definitely part of my spirit, so it's nice. And I also want to thank all my fans for the support and the cheers, because I think that they also contributed to that Fighting Spirit prize. Right before I started the bout, it's a little pre-bout ritual. It's actually in honor of a famous sumo wrestler who just retired, who had a very similar ritual called Hokuto Fuji. So it's an ode to Hokuto Fuji, and I feel very happy that people also enjoyed it. I would definitely call myself a sumo superfan. I haven't been watching for too long, but I follow every one of them. I get very excited, and I can talk forever about sumo. I got into Sumo Sundays first because I started watching professional sumo from Japan, and I found out about this basho last year. I decided to watch, and I just was enamored by the vibes, the community, and decided the very next practice they had, I'll join. And next thing you know, I'm here. Yeah, so this is a sumo exhibition with quite a large crowd, and the intensity was quite high. I wasn't sure what to expect. And so hearing the cheers, hearing the silence before the bout, it all amps you up just for that moment of connection. Sumo is fun for the exhilaration of getting something once. The moment you push a person out, the moment you trip it and you realize, oh, I'm picking up these new skills, these are really exciting, and you see yourself grow and you could do what the professionals do. I think that's something that everyone can.
Russia and Ukraine will start negotiations toward a ceasefire immediately. And that is according to Donald Trump after a 2.5-hour phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Katie Simpson reports from Washington.
U.S. President Donald Trump appearing confident the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is headed toward a resolution.
We just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made.
After separate phone calls with the leaders of both countries, Trump announced negotiations toward a ceasefire will begin immediately. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's open to talks. We are considering a meeting of all teams, America, Ukraine, Russia, European countries, and Great Britain, he said. But Russian President Vladimir Putin appeared far more subdued. The conversation was informative and very frank, Putin said, and that negotiations with Ukraine are headed generally in the right direction, though he wants the root causes of the war eliminated, an alarming delay tactic according to experts.
They're basically saying Ukraine is a failed state. It should become a satellite state of Russia. And for that to happen, we need to take control.
These developments come after Russia and Ukraine sat down for direct peace talks in Turkey last week, and while both sides agreed to a prisoner swap. Russia continues its relentless attacks on Ukraine, killing 3 civilians this weekend after launching its largest drone strikes since the start of the war. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
A cloudy holiday Monday across the South Coast, but that didn't stop the crowds from visiting White Rock's famous pier. Stephanie Hungerford will have your full BC-wide weather forecast coming up.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
CBC celebrates Asian Heritage Month through the language of movement, where every step tells a story. Throughout the month of May, we're shining a spotlight on Asian dance groups, showcasing the dynamic blend of classical, folk, and contemporary dance forms. These talented dance groups share their cultural heritage through stories and traditions, knowledge and technique. Read and watch their stories at cbc.ca/BC.
Stephanie Hungerford joins us now with a look at the weather. Stephanie, we got some rain that brought some cozy vibes to May, but will it continue? What's going on?
It will continue for the next 24 hours with this Pacific front that moved in. It brought a lot of rain, some thunderstorms throughout BC, and you know what? It's going to continue into tomorrow. We do have a couple of warnings for some mountain passes. We have some wet snow that did come in this morning and will also continue through tonight. Highway 3 Paulson Summit to Kootenay Pass, Highway 3 Princeton via Allison Pass, and the Coquihalla Highway Hope to Merritt, and then Merritt to Kamloops. So, you know, we're not out of the woods yet when it comes to snow in certain areas of BC. We are going to see some thunderstorms roll in for much of the province except for the south coast. But warmer temperatures are coming in on Wednesday for especially the interior. You're seeing 19 up north. Fort Nelson has 20. And these temperatures are going to rise throughout the week. Again, Thursday, even in the lower mainland, we're seeing the high teens. So this is great news. We just have to endure the next 24 hours or so. And then we've got this beautiful weather coming in, especially on Thursday, and then higher temperatures. Look at that, 19 on Saturday. So, you know, I'm not really that sad about this. Another 24 hours, we'll be okay. We're used to this.
You know, I liked the rain recently. It allowed us some time to just chill at home for a bit.
I agree. I loved it.
But we got sunshine in the horizon. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And thank you for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News. You can watch this newscast on our free CBC Gem app, as well as on YouTube, and of course our website, that's cbc.ca/BC. Hope you have a great night and a great rest of your weekend.